the intellect is something that's focused inward. It's la'atzmai. Midas are l'zulosai. This is all to be able to explain the difference between the levels of Yudke versus Vavke. Yudke we say is hanistaris. Yudke is the level of moichin. Therefore, it's the level of internal versus the level of the midos is haniglois. Vavke is niglois. Vihaniglois lanul banenu. Midos is about being revealed to someone else, and we explained even when the moichin is being revealed, it's not about the other. It's primarily inward. And midas, even when it's within the person, is primarily about the other. So now the Rebbe is going to speak about within the person's koiches themselves, not just relating to the other outside of the person, but within the person himself, there is the other within the person, and that other within the person, moichin, is removed from, and that zulas, that other within the person, midas, is associated with. So again, second paragraph on page 4, second paragraph in Ois Hey. And to add, the fact that seichel is beyond any connection, association with another. Even, like we said before, even when he's communicating to someone else, it's still beyond the other. When we use the term zulas, when we use the term another, it's not just referring to the other that's outside of the person. Also matters that are in the person himself that are considered other zulas in regards to the intellect. So he's going to explain where we see this. Therefore, to be able to arrive at an idea, he needs to figure something out, or he needs to hear something well. He needs to constrict, he needs to conceal all other powers. They are like disturbances, just like being around people. The people around him could disturb his thought process. The same thing, other types of functions going on within him could be disruptive. This is a very geschmack word, that even a person could have such a strong desire and interest in understanding a topic that sometimes that overwhelming desire and will can interfere with his concentration. I want to understand. He can't relax. His mind can't get to a quiet place within himself to be able to concentrate. So when it comes to intellect has to be removed from all foreign, other, zulastic things, including even his own soul powers that will interfere, including the desire to understand the idea. Why? Since they are considered an other. In comparison to the intellect, they are disturbing the understanding of the seichel, just like a person outside, having people around them, people talking to him, or whatever. This interferes with his concentration. Now let's look at, once he understands it, how about then? In a similar vein, on the other side, even when he understands the idea, the comprehension is far away and separated from other matters and powers that are in the person. It lives like in its own bubble, removed from all the other soul powers. To such a degree, it's possible that his comprehension will not affect the person. The fact that the comprehension of the intellect brings in general to the emotions in the heart until actual action. That when I understand something, the purpose is to act on it. The greatness of learning is that it brings to action. So how could you say that intellect is removed from all the soul powers, and the intellect could possibly not even affect the person? I can understand that this is correct, but I won't do it, and so on. So he says like this. The reason that we say that that the comprehension is supposed to in general bring to an emotion, and in general comprehension is Godel Talmud Shmevode Maisa has to bring us to action. It's not because in the very makeup of intellect, emotions are a part of it or connected with it, and action is connected with it. Not at all. Ella, rather, intellect is similar to light that shines everywhere. Light is not about the place. It shines everywhere equally. It doesn't make a difference if the place is a place that is light friendly or not light friendly, if the place is somewhere that appreciates light or doesn't appreciate light. It doesn't make a difference if human beings are there or it's only rocks and earth. It doesn't make a difference if it's filth and garbage and so on. Light just expands everywhere. So the same thing, intellect is very much like light. It will expand everywhere and it will reach the world of emotions. It will expand everywhere and reach the world of action even. But it's not that by its very nature, intellect and action have an association, just like the light of the sun has no connection with the garbage dump that it illuminates, has no connections with the inanimate objects that it illuminates, has no connection even with the people that it illuminates. It just shines, and wherever it reaches, it reaches. And the movement the Rebbe says from this understood. The bepolus aseichel kol hakoyches ve'inyanim sheba adam ein misgale inyanim shel aseichel. In the influence and effect of intellect on all the different powers and matters of the person, it's not that the very nature of what the seichel is about, it becomes revealed, because that is light. Light is not about that the receiver of the light appreciates or needs to appreciate. He says in footnote 38 that this is the difference in Chassidus between the terms oir and koyach. Koyach is about influencing and affecting. That's its mission. That's its purpose. And therefore, when you do a certain activity that manifests that power, let's say you have the power of sight, and by looking, you're manifesting that power of sight. But the light, it's not about affecting an illumination. It just is, and therefore it illuminates. So therefore, the true idea of light is not like in a way revealed through illumination. It's a very subtle type of difference. According to this, we could say the fact that the intellect is considered from the nistaros, the concealed ones, they're even concealed also from the different matters and powers that's in the person himself. So now in Ois Vav, he's going to bring it back to the pasuk at the beginning of our parsha, that we were speaking about the different levels. There's two levels of Mishkan, HaMishkan and Mishkan HaAdus, and we're right away going to identify, after in the beginning of the Maimer, talking about the lower Shechina, the higher Shechina, two levels in Tzaddikim, the Torah, the mitzvahs, the avoid of Tshuva Lodge, V'tata, Malchus, Bina, just throwing around levels. Now we're going to begin to understand, based on that we understand that one is the level of Yudke, one is the level of Vavke. Yudke is concealed because it's intellect. Vavke is revealed because it's emotions. Now we'll be able to understand how this fits into the two Mishkans that's mentioned over here. This is the numbers of the Mishkan. The Mishkan of testimony that was counted by Moshe. Mishkan Stam, Mishkan, the ordinary level of Mishkan without the appellation Mishkan Ha'edus, who avoid Solev. That's the service of the heart. Doesn't say Elub Kudei Mishkan, but Elub Kudei HaMishkan, with the definitive article, the Mishkan. What's the mean? The means we know what it is. When I tell a person pick up the cup or bring me the cup, it's assuming that that person knows what cup I'm referring to. Or else I would just tell the person, bring me a cup. The cup is identifying, the cup means that it's revealed. Ha-mishkan with hey idea indicates that it's revealed. How come? Because it's the lower level, the level of Vavke, the level of Midas. Because the emotions of the heart is in the state of revelation. The idea of the Mishkan of testimony, the inyan is the level of intellect which is concealed. The inyan ha'edus al davar anelam davke kimevor b'kutei Torah. That when we talk about testimony, it's only on something that's concealed. That we do not need testimony, the Chazal say, on a milsa da'avida le'igluya, on a matter that's going to be revealed. Testimony is necessary for something that we are not aware of. So witnesses come to Bezdin and tell us, you didn't know this and this. We are testifying to this. So therefore, Mishkan ha'edus, which is about concealment, who avoid the samayach top of the page side of Gimel, the avoid of the intellect. Because intellect is a level of concealment. In the intellect itself, what is the real Mishkan Ha'edus? Edus u'bedavar nelam, edus goes on something that's concealed. It's in the inner level of intellect that's beyond any association with midas. As we know, there's the intellect that comes down into the midas. There's the intellect that has already the midas, the scholars in the intellect, and then there's the essential level of intellect that's completely divorced from any type of emotions. The Indian Mishkan Ha'edus, whose the idea of the Mishkan of testimony is, we're talking about Mishkan. Hashem should reside over there. This comprehension and godliness, including also the comprehension of the inner level of the brain, the inner level of the intellect, it becomes joined and united with the person that is comprehending it. Until he becomes it. He becomes a residence, a dwelling for the testimony, Mishkan, a residence for a Mochen, a set place for to the godly light that shines in the intellect, that's beyond the godly light that shines in the emotions. That's the level of Mishkan Ha'edus, so much greater than the first Mishkan, Ha-Mishkan. That's why Shagabe Mishkan Ha'edus Namar Asher Puked Al Pi Moshe. In the beginning of the Maimer, we said that there's two ways of explaining Asher Puked Al Pi Moshe. If the words that was counted by Moshe is referring to the general idea of the Mishkan, or it's referring directly to what it says, Mishkan Ha'edus. Now it's understood that explanation that says that it's going on Mishkan Ha'edus, because to be able to have such a high level of the godly understanding that's beyond having any connection with midas comes into the person, you need Moshe. So a person should be a host and a residence for this light. Why? It's through the level of Moshe that's in every single Yid that he's able to attain and reach this level. And then we also explained at the beginning of the Maimer that another, and the simple meaning about Pukad Al Pi Moshe is not limited to the last part of the pasuk, Mishkan Ha'edus, but it's going on the Mishkan in general. Pekudei Mishkan Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe. These are the numbers of the Mishkan that was Pukad Al Pi Moshe. How does that fit? So he's saying that Pukad Al Pi Moshe Koi Gamal Elu Pekudei Mishkan Kanal Sif Aleph, that when it says it was counted by Moshe, it's also referring to these are the numbers of the Mishkan, like we said in Sif Aleph. Through our avoid of the Mishkan of testimony, the level of intellect, Gama Midas Mishkan Stami Ba'ifanacher, also the Midas, which is the ordinary Mishkan, are in a totally different manner. Like we said in the earlier Sif, in the beginning of today's Shir, the intellect is like the light that shines everywhere. So therefore, when the intellect is raised up in a higher level through Moshe, so then the emotions are greater than what it would be without Moshe Rabbeinu's input, because then that higher level of godly light of the intellect permeates and influences the emotions as well. Through the level of Mishkan Ha'edus being settled in the person, this higher level of godly light, so now his midas are on a higher level than it would be prior to that. Now he's going to bring this in to also some of the explanations we explained on this Mishkan Ha'edus, the avoid of tshuva, Baal tshuva, the avoid of tzaddikim. So he says in Oizayin v'niyadua, it's known shamayla the avoid of tshuva l'gab avoid tzaddikim. The advantage of the avoid of tshuva over the avoid of tzaddikim is shavoid of tzaddikim. He beseder v'adroga. The avoid of tzaddikim is in an orderly fashion. It's in a way of a normal type of way. You do your Torah mitzvahs, you grow in Torah mitzvahs. There was nothing wrong that you need to like jump out of and break out of your boundaries. Everything is step by step. The avoid of tshuva is to jump over walls, in a way of totally without limitation, calculation, not the opposite of step by step. We could say, one of the explanations why tshuva specifically in bina, like we mentioned before in Ois Beis, we didn't explain over there in Ois Beis why it's in bina. I mentioned that the Zohar says that tshuva has to do with bina, toshuv hey has to do with bina, but it doesn't really explain the conceptually why tshuva has to do with bina. And we said also tzaddikim has to do with doing regular avodah, has to do malchus, he's mekayim the mitzvahs hamelech, that's the tzaddik. So seemingly, why is bina only limited to the avodah of the Baal tshuva? Why not by tzaddikim? Tzaddikim also have the level of intellect in their service. Though by the avodah of tzaddikim, there's also the avodah that involves the intellect, including also the avodah that's a result of the inner level of the intellect. Because the main advantage of intellect over emotions is because the light of intellect is higher and separated from the very being of a person, like we said earlier in Ois Hey. That's the idea of intellect. That's the whole difference between intellect and emotions. Emotions has to do with the person, but the zulas within the person, intellect is beyond. Therefore, the true idea of moichin and bina is primarily in the avodah of tshuva, because the Baal tshuva is the one that skips and leaves existence, whereas tzaddikim are still within existence, so they don't really embody the true idea of moichin, of being completely beyond everything. Going back to the beginning that you just said like statements without explaining. Now we can understand how the two levels of the Mishkan and Mishkan Ha'edus is tzaddikim and tshuva. The avodah of tzaddikim, gam avodah hamoichin hu Mishkan stam. The avodah of tzaddikim, even the avodah of intellect, is the ordinary Mishkan. Mishkan Ha'edus, the Mishkan, that's the Mishkan of testimony, the higher level, the level having to do with true intellect. Avodah tshuva is the avodah of tshuva. So now again, let's now understand where Moshe plays a role in both of these. Like we said, either Moshe can go on the first Mishkan or it can go on Mishkan Ha'edus. The connection of the two explanations of that was counted by Moshe according to this explanation. We could say, what's the idea of Moshe? Moshe was the embodiment of total bittul, like Moshe said, and we are what? We are of no significance. The true idea of Pukad al Pi Moshe is the Mishkan Ha'edus, because something that's totally beyond limitation, beyond boundaries, that's the level of bittul and metzias. Still in all that has to do with the avodah of metzias, with the Pekudei Mishkan, with the avodah of tzaddikim. Why? Because through the avoid of complete bittul, completely going out of oneself, through the avoid of tshuva, gam kiyum Torah mitzvahs u'ba'ifin naili yoser, also the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs in a much higher way. Okay, Pirish Haidor B'Lashon Razal, the well-known explanation in the expression of Chazal, tshuva ma'asim tovim, tshuva and good deeds. Why does it say tshuva and good deeds? It should say the other way around. Good deeds, and chas shalom, a person messes up, there's plan B, he does tshuva. Why does it say tshuva and then good deeds? Shaydei tshuva nasim ma'asim mitzvahs ma'asim tovim u'meirim. That tshuva influences the actions. Without tshuva, there would only be ma'asim alone, ma'asim mitzvahs. For the ma'asim mitzvahs to be luminous, which is the idea of the word toiv, shows on luminous, because it says that when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, that they saw that he was good. And one of the explanations is that nismala bayis kuli oira. Toiv has to do with light, like it says about v'yarel kimas oir ki toiv. So how did the mitzvahs become to a higher level? That's through tshuva. So therefore, even mishkan, which is not mishkan ha'edus, the avoid of tzaddikim, the avoid of mitzvahs, become impacted and elevated through the avoid of tshuva. Now he's going to explain, not just contrasting that mishkan and mishkan ha'edus. It's tshuva, bal tshuva and tzaddikim, but also in tshuva itself, there's different levels. In tshuva itself, there's both levels of emotions and intellect. Mishkan stam, the ordinary mishkan, is midos. The lower level, mishkan ha'edus, that's the level of the intellect. The tshuva tatam, the lower tshuva, which is like we have in the Gersa tshuva, toshav hey tatam lavav, it's about returning the lower hey to the vav that was before it, that's higher than it in the name Yud Kei Vav Kei B'midas. That's a tshuva that has to do with the level of midas. We're returning the hey to the vav, which is the midas. The tshuva ilah, top of page sadik daled, the higher level of tshuva, toshav hey ilah la yud b'moichin. It's returning the upper hey, the level of bina, to the level of the yud, which is in moichin and intellect for the chachma ilah. We can explain what's this avoida in a person. The tshuva tatoy be'ikim and agel avoida Torah mitzvah sumer avasei toiv. The lower tshuva is primarily focused on the avoida of Torah mitzvahs, turning away from bad and doing good. The skipping in the lower tshuva, the breaking out of boundaries in the lower tshuva is concerning the person's own mitzias. Therefore, it's part of the category of toshav hey tata to the vav. It has to do primarily with the emotions, because emotions still has to do with the person's limited existence. But tshuva is to return the soul to its source, the way it was joined with the Eibishter in a total unity before Atanafachta, that we say, before it was blown into us. Through this, he leaves and he becomes nullified from his existence. Therefore, that higher level of tshuva is in the level of intellect and bina. According to this, both in Yonim of the Mishkan is in the tshuva itself. Mishkan stam tshuva tata, Mishkan ha'edus tshuva ilah. The lower Mishkan, the regular Mishkan, is the tshuva tata, and the higher level, the Mishkan ha'edus, is in tshuva ilah. And again, now we have to explain what that has to do with Asher Pukad al Pi Moshe. That Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that made it happen. Both the tshuva tata, both the tshuva ilah. The Shnei Perushim Basher Pukad al Pi Moshe. Shloimar, the explanation of both explanations. That Basher Pukad al Pi Moshe, that whether it's going on the Mishkan or it's going on Mishkan ha'edus, we could say. We said before, Moshe is about Bittul Metzias. So what's Moshe's contribution? Primarily in Tshuva Ilah, because Tshuva Ilah, Mishkan ha'edus, is also about totally beyond the person's Metzias. Yet, even though it's primarily in the level of Tshuva Ilah, still in what's connected with these are the numbers of the Mishkan, because through the higher level of Tshuva, So also the lower level of tshuva becomes, in other words, his improvement in Torah mitzvahs becomes impacted as well and changed as well through that. So Moshe Rabbeinu really affects both. Primarily affects Mishkan HaEdus, but by extension, by affecting the Mishkan HaEdus, which is the Shuvah law, he affects also the Tshuva Tata, the ordinary Mishkan.